about Jim Miller, the journeyman. So I have a question. When did Jim Miller become the face of fighter pay for the UFC and Dana White? Hey, what's going on, fight fans? Hey, this is Coach D, the Wild Man, coming at you again with another episode of Coach D Media. Now, you know I do with Coach D Media. I talk about all things combat sports related, from the highs to the lows. All right, let's go ahead and get back into it. Today, we're going to talk about Jim Miller, the journeyman. So I have a question. When did Jim Miller become the face of fighter pay for the UFC and Dana White? So he did a podcast with one of the guys in politics talking about the UFC and fighter pay and all that kind of good stuff. And they used Jim Miller as the face of people are doing just fine in the UFC. Okay. Now, Jim Miller has been around forever, had over 43 fights in the UFC and all that kind of good stuff. He's been in some really good fights. Right. But is he a superstar? No, not really. You know what I'm saying? He's been around long enough that people can find him, should know who he is. Has he been in some good fights? Yeah, like Nick Diaz, all that kind of good stuff where he's lost. You know what I'm saying? But, and he's been able to eke out a career in the UFC and be able to pay his bills and all that kind of good stuff. But is that the representative of what we want, that you got to spend almost 15 years in the UFC to make money? That you gotta go through everything and keep your mouth shut, and we'll go ahead and pay you. Don't rock the boat. Don't make any smart remarks. Don't go on social media and talk shit. Just go ahead and shut up and fight, and we'll pay you. Is that what it's all about? Right? But then you got guys who run their mouth and talk shit and make waves, and they make tons of money. But Jim Miller has to be quiet and just compete, and we'll go ahead and pay you. You know what I'm saying? So now he's going to be on UFC 300, which is, I think is going to be his final fight. I think he's going to retire after that. So I'm thinking that's kind of a little bit of what's going in with, Dana White, making him the face of fighter pay, that this is going to be his last hurrah. So why not give him some love? That's kind of what I'm thinking. But now it makes you dig deeper. Okay, is Jim Miller, the standard of what being able to eke out a career in UFC is all about, right? So I went to look him up, and 43 fights in the UFC, right? Jim Miller has the highest number of fights, I think, going on right now. Andre Arlovski got 39, Donald Cerrone got 38, Clay Guida got 35. I think he's still fighting. Jeremy Stevens had 34. He's no longer with the UFC. So he's been around for a while. Doing good. Got 25 wins, I think it's the highest right now. So he has an overall career in breaking records, but does that account to making money? So I kind of looked on Google and looked up his net worth. His net worth is like at what, 2 million overall net worth. So like I said, I guess, for 43 fights over 15 years in the biggest, combat sports, freaking promotion in the world, I guess that's pretty good if you look at it that way, right? But he's not a star, right? He can't, get a main event. I don't think he's never had a title shot. You know what I'm saying? He's never had a chance to be a big name. You know what I'm saying? He never did, right? Whether he choose to be or not, that wasn't the case. Like, guys like, Donald Cerrone is a big name. I think he had a couple of title shots, but Donald Cerrone had plenty of opportunities. He's making plenty of money, right? Even Tyron Woodley said, I had the belt and I made just as much money as Donald Cerrone, right? So that's another topic that we can get into on a later date. That Tyron really hold the belt and Donald Cerrone did not, but yet they made the same pay. How does that happen? So that's when you can say, okay, fighter pay is jacked up as a belt holder is going to make just as much as a non-belt holder. Then what's the point of having a belt? Right? Nate Diaz, couple shots at, the belt throughout his career, right? But he's one of the highest paid in combat sports, right? So, like I said, and he has plenty of losses on his record. See what I'm saying? So it still comes down to star power. So if you want to make real money, you got to be a star. If you're a nobody, you got to do what the UFC tells you to do. If you want to get paid, you know what I said? Fight who we tell you to fight and shut up, right? As long as you're quiet, we'll cut you some dollars. So yeah, Jim Miller can survive like that, right? But like I said, did he get everything that he probably wanted? If you had probably had a private conversation with him, he probably would have said no. As many fights as I have, I should be pretty up there, right? But look at all the ones who has all the star power, like a Conor McGregor, a Nate Diaz, George Masvidal. You know what I'm saying? Israel Adesanya, Sean Strickland, Sean O'Malley, right? Now DDP. Yeah, all these guys who's making headlines, right? They can get pretty high, decent paydays real quick with not having to spend 15 years in the UFC, right? Not have to have 43 fights, right? In order to eke out a living, right? Look at freaking Francis Ngannou, right? I didn't write down how long Francis Ngannou has been in the UFC, but Francis Ngannou hasn't been in the UFC that long, right? Nowhere near Jim Miller, right? And look how fast he's made it to the top. Title defense, title shots, had the belt, all that kind of good stuff, right? He was able to get his name out there, pretty daggone good, was able to ride out his contract and was able to leave the UFC, right? Was able to fight Tyson Fury, right? Made $10 million for that fight, right? For his next fight, he may make close to $20 million for his next fight. Why can't he be the poster of fighter pay for combat sports? I know we're talking about the UFC, but we're talking about the ability to make money in combat sports, right? He's showing that there's a way to do it, right? Dana White is saying, shut up and take what we give you and we'll pay you okay. Over time, you're supposed to be able to get journey money, right? Journeyman money, where over time, you're supposed to get your money to rise up with either your Venom, freaking sponsorship deal and things like that. Right? But it's still on the UFC's guidelines. You only get paid what we tell you, what we get you paid. I saw an old clip of Dana White talking about Conor McGregor, right? And they brought up fighter pay. And he pretty much said, if you're not Conor McGregor, shut up, right? Which means if you can't bring in money, you're not going to make money. And you're right. Conor McGregor, highest pay-per-views, brings in the crowds, all the kind of good stuff, butts in the seats. Because of Conor McGregor, he gets paid that. So it still goes down. Can you put butts in the seats? Jim Miller's been a quiet guy. Dana White even said, the casual fan is not going to know who Jim Miller is, right? But he's able to make millions in the UFC. Over 43 fights, it better add up over time. I don't know about millions, maybe a couple of million. I don't know about millions, right? Or else, like I said, you'll see him a lot more. You'll hear about him a lot more if he's one of the guys who's making real money in the UFC. There's good money and then there's real money. He ain't making real money. He's making good. He's making okay money for this longer journeyman in fights, right? The longer you go, you're going to make money over time, right? That's why Donald Cerrone lasted as long as he did. Donald went on a huge lose streak, stayed with it because he was getting paid pretty good, right? If you get guaranteed, $200,000-$300,000, whether you win or lose, you don't get no win bonus, but if you're getting $200,000 to $100,000 per fight, right? And you taking 2 to 3 fights a year, yeah, you're going to come out okay, even if you lose. Now, if you win, if your win bonus matches your show money, then yeah, you're doing pretty good. So if you get 2 to fight and 2 to win, that's $400,000 for that fight. Good to go. But if you can't win, boom. You know what I'm saying? So whatever money Jim Miller was getting was enough to him to keep on fighting. All right. But like I said, a lot of these other fighters don't have to fight as much. Israel Adesanya has taken a year off. You don't hear him complaining about money. Conor McGregor hadn't fought in forever. You don't hear him complaining about money. George Masvidal doing other things. Nate Diaz doing other things. All the fighters who's able to make it work can leave the fight game early and do other stuff because they became stars, right? George St. Pierre, you ain't see him in a minute. You ain't never heard him say, I need to come back to the UFC and make some money. You ain't never heard that, right? He parlayed his star power in the UFC on the bigger and better things. Okay. So yeah, if you can maximize your overall star power, you can make money in other areas. But if you're just a fighter and you don't have any other sponsorships and you're not building other things, your fighting pays the bills. So you got to keep fighting, win or lose, injured, whatever the hell. You got to keep fighting. How many fighters you hear about fighting injured because they can't take time off anymore because they got too many bills. They got gym bills. They got house bills. They got all these things they got to pay for. They can't take time off. So they got to fight injured. You see what I'm saying? So fighter pay is a real problem for the amount of damage. A, the amount of damage you take. B, how much it costs to prepare for a fight. Can you look at some of these fighters talk about their camps? Their camps cost $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, up to $50,000, for a camp. If you're a big time fighter, up to $100,000 just for your camp. Okay. So yeah, that's $100,000 off your pay, win or lose, even before you fight. And God forbid you get cut. That fight gets cut or gets scrapped and you get injured. Now you don't put up $100,000 that you can't recoup. Look at Wonderboy Thompson when he had that big conversation about his fighter not making weight. His fighter was 5 pounds off or something like that for a fight he was supposed to have. He goes, hey, I've been around here forever. Why do I got to fight this guy? The guy can't make weight, right? So he didn't fight the guy because the guy didn't make weight, and they didn't want to pay him his show money. Right? I don't think he got it. They just gave him another fight, something like that. So that shows you even journeymen catch hell. You know what I'm saying? Where people could get away with not following the rules, and they make the guys who do it right have to suffer. Look at Hamzat, who was 8 pounds over, whatever the hell he was, right? Instead of getting his fight completely cut where he got to eat it, no, they made him fight at a different weight, and he was able to fight on the card. Okay, and still end up winning. Right, still end up getting paid. Right, you see what I'm saying? So certain guys get a pass, other guys don't. Right, only way for you to survive is to spend 16 years in the UFC to make it work. Right, but other guys can spend half that time and make tons of money. So fighter pay is a real problem because other people are able to make it work in other promotions and do quite well, get sponsorships, have freedom to do MMA and boxing, like freaking. Francis Ngannou, right? Look at the contract he got for the PFL. He gets to box and still do MMA, right? Where there's no way you're doing that in the UFC without Dana's blessing. You see what I'm saying? So there's so many things we can talk about when it comes to fighter pay and making it work. That's why the Monopoly lawsuit is going and all these back pays where freaking Brock Lesnar was making $8 million to fight in the UFC and other fighters were getting nowhere near that. Right. And that was his first fight come through the door. He was making $8 million, some shit like that. Or the second or third fight. By the third fight, he was making real money. Where other fighters who've been there longer weren't making it. And there were belt holders coming in. Right. Getting quick title shots and all that kind of good stuff. So like I said, it ain't working. It ain't working. But the question is, why Jim Miller is the question. Why Jim Miller is the face of all this. Right. Maybe it's to say goodbye. Saying he did great things, saying we give you this fight if you speak good about the UFC and what we've done for you, all that kind of good stuff. Probably, right? It ain't as easy as that. If Jim Miller could speak freely, he'd be like, man, I've been getting shitted on forever. But he can't say that. Now if you want to fight, now if you want to get this last payday before he bounce, right? So we'll see. But like I said, that's my question. Why the hell is Jim Miller the face of the daggone UFC? It don't make no sense. But not that he's anything wrong with Jim Miller. It just don't make no sense. That's all. Right? So we'll see. We shall daggone see. Oh, yeah. And let me tell you, I am loving my fans. Do you know a couple of fans came at me and told me to cut my daggone hair? That crap is funny. Hey, you guys, I'm liking you guys. I like that you're keeping it real. If I'm looking like some bullshit, you keep me honest. You go, hey, man, your hairline is going in the other direction, brother. You better cut that shit. Funny. Good job on that one, guys. Good job. Hey, keep it real with me. Let's have some fun, right? It ain't all about, trying to get views and all that kind of good stuff. It is because it's a business, but I love what I do. I really do. Another guy hit me up saying, hey, I did a clip with Demetrius Johnson. It was an interview that I'm very proud of. He says, hey, great interview, but you only got 4 views. What you're doing, it's all about doing what I love to, right? If I make it just about business, it ain't fun anymore. You know what I'm saying? It ain't fun anymore. Hopefully, like with Jim Miller, he's fighting because he love it, right? Maybe it ain't all about just making money, but at the end of the day, you still got to pay bills. So it is what it is. So this is Coach D doing what I'm doing, calling it like I see it, talking my share of shit. To hear from me again, peace out.